Race number 3 of 3 of the day. Run the trail 7K in Dilltown. Finished 4th overall. First Masters. 26:49 was my time. It's, what is it? 7K is what? 4.4 miles. Race. It was actually my first Masters award that I got. Check it out. Little choo-choo train. Been a master for about a year now. Been 40 for almost a year now. I'm a week away from 41, and that was the first Masters award that I got. So kind of neat. I was actually shooting for Railroad Spike. They did give out for age group awards. I forgot about Masters until I finished. Because they give out the Railroad Spikes and they paint them gold, silver, and bronze. And I've had a nice little collection. So I've done the race maybe like 8 times now, so I have a nice collection of them. Well, they keep the collection going. So I was shooting for a spike because I knew I wasn't going to win the day. Because I knew Colton was going to be there, this young, fast high school kid that I respect a lot, and I knew he was going to win. So I was like, save yourself. And this being the 3rd race of the day, I wasn't trying to necessarily get a top 3. I was just trying to save enough, as I mentioned earlier, for a Railroad Spike. So, hey, mission sort of accomplished, but sort of not, because I got the first Masters. I don't know if I would have got a top 3 award if I was the first one of the top 3s. I don't know how they do that there. Sometimes if you're not the winner, they drop you to a Masters. But anyway, whatever. I got the first Masters, so I'm happy with that. I'm actually more excited about that now that I'm looking at it than getting my Railroad Spike. But so I finished 4th. It's pretty, well, I don't want to say it's flat. The first half has got a bunch of rolling hills. You start in Dilltown. You actually go up the road a little bit, and you're actually not on the trail right away. You go up the road and you're on this backcountry road for basically 2.2 miles, 2.1 miles before you turn on the Ghost Town Trail itself to finish the last 2 to 2.2 on that. So like every year there's always some kind of weather phenomenon. It's either really hot, but I think last year it was raining, and then it downpoured like right as we were finishing. This year temperatures were pretty decent for this time of year, you know, like maybe high 70s, so out of the 80s at least. So the asphalt wasn't baking you as you were running, so pretty good running temperatures. There was no dead animals along the trail this year. That was always a thing. There's either like a deer or smelly raccoon dead along the trail. Well, the road portion of the trail, race, whatever. Other years as well. I got sick a couple of times just when I smelled it because I didn't know it was there. I was just like, bah! You know, type deal. It's nice not to have that this year either. With my game plan, just going for the spike going in, I probably did save myself a lot of energy going in, just because I had that mindset not to try to chase the high school kids, because there's always a bunch of high school kids there trying to hang and race, like play some mind games with them. And this year I just, again, going in wasn't my plan at all. So just a different mindset, I think, helped me a lot. Plus being the 3rd race of the day and just being smart in general, all combined, I think really benefited me. But anyway, after my race, 2 races this morning, rushed home. Then I went down to the Bolivar Brick Fest. Wanted to throw the brick. I never threw the brick. They have like a brick throwing contest. I thought I was only going to be there for half an hour. Ended up being there for like two and a half. And I didn't even eat lunch or anything in between the two races this morning or after, so I was behind on nutrition. So I didn't even really get to eat until 4 p.m., which I had 2 Italian sausages. It was probably not the smartest move, but I was going to live with it because I was hungry and I wanted to benefit the New Florence Lions Club. So if you think about it, that's probably not the smartest move to eat at 4 o'clock and have a race at 6, especially 2 Italian sausages with, onions and green peppers and stuff. But hey, whatever. That's what I wanted to eat, and I was looking forward to it all morning. I just thought I was going to have a lot more time to digest it. So I sort of thinking I was going to end up getting sick during the race. I was hoping I wouldn't, but I thought that would be a possibility. Luckily, I didn't, probably because I didn't go as hard as I could have or should have. Looking back at it, I arrived probably a little short before the race. I think got there 20 minutes beforehand. I only lived 10 minutes from the race. Well, maybe 12. I think it's more like 10. Anyway, so it's very close to me, probably like a hometown type race. So I wasn't really in a rush to get there. So I did get a 45-minute nap in after I ate. So I think that helped with digestion. Then when I got there, I got my stuff, switched my shoes, wet myself down a little bit to try to keep myself moist, because I think that's been helping a lot, just trying to stay cooler as I start instead of trying to get my body to sweat to cool myself. Starting moist does seem to help. So made sure my hat was wet, splashed water on my stomach and my arms and my pants a little, or my shorts a little bit, just to keep myself cool before going to the start line. I had to use the water fountain because Downtown really doesn't have any water in the bathrooms. Yeah, so if you ever poop there, you have to sort of hope you don't get nothing on your hands, because then you have to use hand sanitizer if you have any in your car or whatever. Anyway, got to the start line, looked around, talked to some people. And then as we started, I started probably 3 or 4 deep. Just going to let those little younger kids, not little kids, but the younger kids do their thing. But I was still ahead of like the other adults. So that was a game strategy. But I quickly moved up to 6, and then 5th. In no time, maybe a couple of tenths in. I was just hanging back in like 5th for a while. Past 4th, maybe a mile and a half in. I would say probably closer to a mile and a half. Well, between a mile and a half, somewhere in that range. Because I knew it was before the last little big dip hill. It's a bunch of rolling hills. There's a couple of little curves, but it just, for the most part, it's quick rolling hills, and then just one steep hill that I hate to even call it a steep or really a big hill, because it's probably only 30 feet, 40 feet climb, but just how it is in the race, it always feels like it's longer and harder, probably because it's always so hot out. It makes the hill feel a lot worse than it actually is. But I passed that kid, went in the 4th then, and yeah, hung on the 4th the rest of the way. He was close by me to a little over 3 miles, and I looked back and he was gone. So I don't know what happened with that. But I wasn't really necessarily worried about him. I did look back probably a handful of times to see if there's any adults or people close my age coming up behind me, and all I just saw was the youth. So I didn't really turn it on earlier in the race, or actually at any point in the race. I just did my thing. I think the first mile was like 5:40, 5:36, somewhere in that range. The other ones were a little over 6 minutes. I didn't really have much juice left in the legs. I mean, I had some top end speed and I could have used it, but I'm going back and forth with it because I say I didn't have juice in my legs, but I did. I just wasn't sure how that juice was going to play out. If I used it, I was afraid that it was going to turn my stomach because I was burping going to the start line, which I forgot to mention. The Italian sausage. So I was afraid if I started redlining and pushing, my stomach would have just turned and I would end up throwing up what was ever left of the Italian sausage. So I was sort of playing that line. So I was just running steady. And I could see Colton in front of me by about a minute. I don't know how much he finished in front of me total, but we'll say at least 3 miles. I could see he was like about a minute ahead of me. And then second and third were maybe 10 seconds for a good bit of the race. And then I shrunk it down to 5. A couple of times I did lean forward a little bit more. And I got that extra bounce going and I was catching them. For some reason, I just sort of took myself out of it and wanted to be in that 4th place position. And again, not trying to upset my stomach, but I felt, though, if I really wanted a top 3, I feel like I could have picked them off if need be. Nothing against the top 2 because I'm friends with the one, but I felt like I could have got them. And then when I did lean forward, I was gaining pretty good on them and closing the gap. So if I would have stayed leaning forward, I could have did. And I had a little bit of a kick, not much. But again, I think with my stomach and the food and being the 3rd race, it was smarter for me to hang back and again play for that spike which is my goal for this race, than actually putting the hammer down and just finishing, trying to get a top 3. I don't know. It's kind of, I'm going back and forth on that. Because our positions were pretty much locked in from that 1.5 mile range to the finish, even though I did close the gap. I was watching them a little bit, because second and third did switch positions also within that, I think, 1.5 mile range, maybe like 1.7. I think they flip-flopped. And at one time, I thought they were both going to fade. Like they were, well, obviously everybody went out too fast, because I caught back up. But we stayed pretty much steady until I turned it or leaned forward a little bit, and I did cut the corners some, because the way that also helped me a lot, keeping and maintaining the distance with less effort, is the way the trail curves. I stayed more on the left-hand side and they were on the right-hand side of the trail. So I was, every once in a while, I was gaining a couple feet here and there just by staying on the left-hand side of the trail. And that kid in 5th place behind me, he followed suit, because when I looked back a couple times, he was on the left-hand side of the trail as well. Should have used him to draft a little bit, but he fell back and I would have fell back off a second and third. I should have caught up and drafted off of them to save some energy and maybe used that right side of the trail, drafting them, and then slingshotted around them if I would have really strategized a little bit better. But then I would have been using more energy to try for a top 3. I'm just trying to think of how my mind was working during the race. That's why I'm spitballing some of this stuff out, compared to my other 2 race recaps this morning, because I could have did a lot more today. But if I was fresh, if I didn't do 2 races, I would have had a lot more. I probably could have knocked, I want to say I could have finished second, maybe even could pushed for first. Not won, but pushed him a little bit more. Because he said, I talked to him afterwards, he said he went out too fast and felt it. Because I told him I thought he was sandbagging because he stayed in view too much because he's just such a faster runner. But yeah, thought about that. But with no adults coming up behind me, and there was no reason for me to really push for even shooting for second or third, because if I wasn't going to win, second or third really didn't matter, because the spike is what mattered. And I had that locked up, so I just ran with it. I didn't see any dogs on the course this year. And then there's notoriously a dog that comes out of one of the houses and chases like first or second place a little bit. I didn't see that this year, so that was kind of nice as well. When we came off the road onto the trail, the water stopped there. I was going to grab water and splash it on myself, and then when I grabbed the cup, I saw it was Gator, and I'm like, oh shit, I thought it was going to be water, so I just took a quick little sip and just threw it to the ground, because I did want water. There's probably both there, but I just picked the wrong person and got the Gatorade instead of the water. But that was my bad. So that was the thing that I screwed up during the race, is I just wanted some water to splash on me, to keep myself a little bit cooler. But I wasn't really too hot even after I finished, or sweating profusely like normally, or even as much as I was the first two races. So I definitely want to say I wasn't pushing as hard as the first two races either today. Plus the humidity wasn't as bad. But I had fun, as I usually do for the race. You know what I mean? I know 90% of the people during this race, even though there's 150, maybe, I think there was 120 or so pre-registered, between 120 and 140 range. I know 90% of the people, so it's always fun to talk to everybody and see what's going on. So that's another main reason I went. Talked to people at the finish line, because I got there too late to do it at the start. Then I got my dilly bar, because they give out ice cream dilly bars at the finish line, and got my master's award and came home. Parking was a little wet in the grass area this year because of the floods, torrential downpours from that Debbie hurricane or whatever that came through yesterday. The trail was in good shape. Roads were clear. They did clear a tree, I guess, on the trail this afternoon. I did see one cut up, but everything was off the side, and it looked like they even brushed sawdust off the trail, so that was unusual for that sort of clearing, so that was kind of nice. That's about it, but got 3 races done. Finished happily. Well, I won one. Finished 4th twice today. Yeah, so I got my worth the wait overall win cup, a Yeti thing. Got my medal in the second chance race. They actually gave us 2, if you heard my recap, they gave us the top 5 overall, and then they gave us the age groups, which I don't know why. Then I got my masters today, so pretty solid day of racing. The times weren't the greatest, but I'm happy with my performances and doing 3 races and how good I feel actually right now, shockingly. And probably going to sleep in tomorrow instead of doing another race in the morning. There's one that I wanted to do, my buddy's race on the Gap Trail. It's a 15 and 5K, but I'd have to get up at 5 in the morning, and I really don't think I want to get up at 5 in the morning. So we'll see. Anyway, it's my Saturday, 3 for 3. That's what, 10.5 miles of racing between 3 races. I know that's not a lot per se for me for races, but just with the start times 8:30, 10 o'clock, and then 6 p.m., and my legs still feel pretty damn good. I take that as another win because yeah, body recovered and I didn't have any issues, and I guess that's what we can ask for. So